Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey, J-Man, how the heck are you doing?
Actually, I'm a little sleepy. I've been up late just about every night this week playing Season 2.
I hear ya. Congrats to Cryptic on we're now in the post-Season 2 launch.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of been a pretty big hit.
Yeah. Now, you wanted to give a special shout-out for the ships, didn't you?
I did. Captain Logan, I want to have your babies. I love the ships. You know, just a real quick story about me personally is I got into Star Trek because I was flipping through the channels as a young boy. As a young lad, flipping through the channels, the thing that caught my eye was the design of the Enterprise.
The Galaxy Enterprise.
I think so. It must have been at that time, yeah. And it grabbed me so much that I watched that whole episode and fell in love with the series and have followed it my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And these ships with the Galaxy specifically, and also the Intrepid and the Sovereign, are the closest, I think, representation I've ever seen of a ship in a Star Trek video game. I mean, they, if nothing else, nailed the spirit of the original design.
Yeah.
I was moved when I saw the Galaxy.
I know.
As a Star Trek fan, it made a big deal to me.
Well, more than just a Star Trek fan, a ship geek.
Yeah, specifically a ship geek.
I mean, it's a subgenre, really, if you think about it. Because I like Star Trek, but I don't know a damn thing about this stuff.
Yeah. So I just got to say, Captain Logan, thank you for adding that. It's really big for some of the fans. I know not everybody cares.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, it's one of those things where it's hard to quantify, but it's appreciated, and I'm sure he's heard plenty of that.
You know, onto the part of the game that I am more excited about is actually more the character art that's coming.
Oh, really?
We got our first look at the Breen recently in their Expanding Universe Part 4.
Yeah, they featured the Breen, dude. What'd you think?
I think they look incredible.
I was particularly impressed with the ground environment, the snow, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be a fun new kind of territory to play.
So looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Another
and the
thing,
ships look cool too.
Yeah, they do. Another thing that they did show on this is some of the new costume packs, like the Mercenary pack that they've been talking about for a while. Not so excited about that, but it has a cool eye patch.
Oh.
And I'll probably put that on my character for at least a little while.
Kind of another tease we got recently was the Iconians were featured in a Star Trek magazine.
Yeah, I want to say when we're talking about this, it might be a little spoiler heavy, so you've been warned.
But they show a lot of concept art for the Iconians, and they show some of the characters and some of the machinery. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they really want to play them up as the supervillain in STO.
Yeah, they're calling the Iconians the Big Bad.
Yeah, which I thought that's what the Undine were going to be, but it sounds like maybe they're going to be pulling the strings of the Undine.
It could be.
Could be a nice story play.
I mean, if you think about them, they're demons of air and fire, or wind and fire, or something like that.
And they supposedly have the ability to teleport anywhere they want, right?
Across the entire galaxy.
So that could be pretty powerful.
That could be.
Now, this next story, I'll be honest, probably only going to apply to a small percentage of the audience, but it's a question I think we've gotten quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty excited. You pointed this out, that Star Trek Online has now received gold status from Wine.
Yep.
That's really great. And that just means that it's considered to have no major bugs. And as a matter of fact, just circumstantially, I happen to be playing STO under Wine this all last week.
Really?
I leveled twice under Wine. Actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it works.
It works fine. It patched through to Season 2. No
Should
issue.
clarify this is Wine 1.2, which I guess is a very recent release.
Yeah, it is. But I don't even think the one I'm using is Wine 1.2. I think it's even an older version.
But it still works.
Yeah, the only issue I've had is every now and then my right click isn't recognized. But I guess there's actually a fix for it. I just have to look it up. But it's worked great.
We'll include as much information as we can find in our show notes.
Now, some game changes that could be potentially coming down the pipe that I think both of us are kind of excited about is some changes to PvP.
Yeah, this was an actual official announcement. This wasn't one of those things you just see in the forums like, oh, we're thinking of doing this. These guys actually came out and announced that they're adding some changes to the PvP queues.
Yeah.
First of all, fixing a bug with the queue system so that you don't enter empty maps, stuff like that. But more importantly, I think, down the road, they're going to be adding private matches.
This is neat. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, these private matches can contain mixed tiers, can go play PvP against each other. So if, like, I've got a captain alt, if one of my friends has a lieutenant commander alt, we can still PvP against each other if we want to.
That would be painful for the lower one.
Yeah, but, if they want to challenge me to a duel, suck it. Now, the other thing they're adding to this also is they've hinted at some sort of, like, tournament or ladder system that could be like short-lived, maybe taking place just over a single weekend. But then if you're participating in those specific matches, your ranking will be carried over through multiple matches so that at the end of the event, to this several-day event, you can see who's actually the best.
You know what I love is the idea of making a weekend to show up. and participate in something that's multiple people are playing in across the game. And honestly, I think I've enjoyed the play with the devs on Tribble because it's an event.
Yeah.
And we've tried to recreate that with our live events, and we've had a lot of fun. We get sometimes a much larger turnout than you'd expect because people people would like these these things to look forward to in the Star Trek world.
Yeah, kind of an excuse to log in and play at this specific time rather than just having it something I'll do that when I don't do anything else later on.
So having be able to maybe set your own even would be really cool.
Yeah. So. Well, I think the fleet calendars in game could be utilized for that. We've been utilizing it. Our first officer, the guy that basically runs the fleet when we're too busy to do it ourselves, has set up weekly sessions. So you guys could do that for your own fleets out there. I think it's a great way to draw people in. Now, this next batch of news has to fit into our brand new segment.
Daniel Stahl says stuff.
The man is a busy man.
By the way, can we just start calling him Stahlzilla? Because I love that graphic.
All right, Stahlzilla said stuff. He's been in a couple interviews. This has got to be the busiest guy I know of. Next to maybe us. We do a lot of shows, Dan. I'm sorry. All right, so Stahl was over at Massively. Got a couple of nuggets he dropped on us.
Well, the first of all is he's talking about, basically has confirmed that they're going to be putting in a mechanic in place where you can promote your bridge officers to characters.
Yes.
Which is something that we've talked about on this show in the past. I'm glad to see that they either had the same idea or stole it from us and ran from it.
Which is cool.
Either way, we're cool with that. But so that's a great idea because then you can promote, let's say, a commander boff immediately becomes a commander character.
And I've got a couple of my boffs that are like my favorites that I wrote into my character storyline. I would love to be able to promote them and play them.
Another thing that they're talking about making this available is maybe this is how you get those C-Store characters of races that you can only buy in the C-Store, but maybe you can obtain them as bridge officers, rank them up, and then transfer them into characters. So you can still obtain them in-game without having to go out and purchase them.
Fair. We should also mention that he talked a little bit, expanded a little bit on his concepts of free-to-play and why he doesn't think it's a last resort for a game.
Yeah, I think we're going to cover that more in depth in a future episode, next week.
We might save that for next week.
Each of us have quite a bit to say on that topic.
Before every show, we sit down and we go through all the topics, and really, we just started going on that one for like 15 minutes, and we thought, okay, wait a minute, let's do a show on it.
We got more to talk about, so next week.
It also gives you guys a chance in the comments over in the Jupiter Colony to chime in with your ideas that we could incorporate into the discussion.
Maybe open our brains to new ways of thought.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Another thing that Stahl actually mentioned over at Massively is that they are confirmed they're going to be adding some Gorn and Nausicaan, but they will be adding those ships to the KDF.
That's cool. I would love to be able to fly an Orion ship.
Later on, he also mentioned that there are more Federation retrofit ships coming, like maybe a retrofit of
the
Constitution or
now
something.
Is they're focusing on Klingon ships, but I'm excited to get back to the canon.
I love the design of some of the Nausicaan ships. Those things are freaking evil looking, and I would love to fly them.
More of the changes to the Klingon ships.
Yeah,
I think those could be you could really strike that Star Trek nerve. That's where I'm.
So they said that the refits will come after they put more ships on the Klingon side.
That's fair.
So Klingons get their love first.
Anything else that was in these recent interviews that you thought was kind of neat?
Well, he showed up over at Trek Movie, did an interview. Most of the stuff is things we've already covered. If you've been watching STOked, then you're probably up to date.
But I know that some people are still kind of keeping an eye on the whole C-Store stuff, and he did cover some of that over the Trek Movie.
He basically covered some ground about how trying to keep it even, on an even keel, basically between content that you play for.
Damage control.
It might have been a little bit of that.
Damage control. What are you gonna do? We'll talk about more. I have a whole theory around the C-Store, which we'll talk about more when we talk about our free to play.
All right.
Yeah.
The rest of Stahl's little nuggets were just things that he dropped into the dev tracker, which at one point he says,
Stahl nugget.
I'll just rename it the Stahl tracker from now on because he was quite prolific over the last week or so.
I know.
Either addressing some bugs and issues that came up with season 2 or giving us some info on future development.
I hope he goes and rides a boat or something for a while, so that way he doesn't burn himself out.
Now, speaking of new content that came out, though, the diplomatic missions, which, by the way, I'll be doing an in-depth review on our math segment this week, so stay tuned for that. He has mentioned basically, each one of those missions only gives you 10 experience.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to grind that stuff out, and they're very random. So, I'm still the first rank just because I can't freaking get any non-combat missions. Yep.
Yeah, I know.
So, Stahl came out and basically confirmed that he agrees that non-exploration diplomatic missions should be giving a larger share of experience.
So picture a mission like that. One of those first mining missions you get down where it's basically a question and answer.
Yeah,
You just run around and ask the miners questions.
Right.
So that kind of thing might contribute more to your diplomatic.
Yeah, maybe it'll give you 20 instead of 10.
Okay.
He basically says, yes, we should be enhancing some of those rewards.
Yeah, and I think that'll
good
it's
on
a new
that.
system, and that'll probably be worked out pretty quick.
Now, the last thing that he came out and talked about in the dev tracker is just a conversation that started regarding when you hit Rear Admiral 6 and from there up to Vice Admiral, you don't get any new bridge officers.
Right, so you're kind of stuck with what you got.
A lot of people are worried that now if they've already used up all their bridge officers, how are they going to improve themselves at this point?
Right.
So Stahl brought up this idea of a bridge officer transfer system that would enable you to flag your currently active or uncommissioned buffs that you've got sitting in your lineup there.
Plenty of.
Eligible for transfer, which would in essence put them on an exchange type interface that then somebody can go through and flip through the personnel records.
And maybe
and
they're
see,
looking for a buff with a specific space ability.
right, or a specific ground trait.
So when you
or
say
something like
flag
that.
is transferable, that means they're still your buff until they're transferred?
That's what it sounded like they were aiming for.
Well, that's how it would be like on a real starship.
Right.
Because you'd have an officer who would continue to perform their duty until they're
well,
transferred.
how many times do they mention on the shows, yeah, I put in for a transfer?
Right.
Exactly.
You're still working. You put in for that transfer.
Right.
You're still working.
Right.
That could be really cool.
Yeah.
I would see people doing things to almost create the buff just for the purpose of exchanging it.
Yeah, and that would be a great opportunity for people that have like rank 9 skills that they can train those rank 3 abilities. So they can train a buff and then just put them up for transfer and see if anybody's biting.
Yeah.
And another thing that Stahl mentioned is that they could potentially seed this system with like pre-made bridge officers that nobody actually has out there, but they're like freshly graduated from Starfleet Academy or the Klingon Academy.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you combine that with the ability to turn your bridge officer into your own playable character, you could go pick the coolest buff and then just upgrade it to a playable character.
Yep.
That would be really neat.
That would be cool.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that too. So again, leave us your comments wherever you'd like to do so. But with all of the news covered, let's get masked.
With the recent release of Season 2, many captains out there are trying to work their way up the ranks of the diplomatic corps. But despite there being thousands and bajillions of different guides out there, I still see a bunch of people online every day asking, how do I get started? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? So this is going to be the official You Got Math version of your introduction to the diplomatic corps. Now, I'll warn you right up front, this segment's going to be pretty spoiler heavy, but that's because many of these missions can be failed. And let me tell you from personal experience, it's no fun to fail a mission, especially when all you're doing is walking around and talking to people. You got to start them all over from the beginning, and some of these have several steps involved. So if you don't like spoilers, you might want to skip ahead, check out some of the guides online. If you don't care about spoilers, read on. What I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a walkthrough of the first 7 missions that you can get at any time now that Season 2 has landed. Each of these introductory 7 missions will give you 10 diplomatic experience apiece. Additional special diplomatic missions don't unlock until you've gotten a total of 160 diplomatic experience and ranked up to the rank of attaché. You'll have to do some additional non-combat missions after these in order to reach your next rank and unlock more missions. The first of these diplomatic missions will take place right near home in good old Vulcan. Now, as soon as you beam down onto this massive pile of steps, you'll see an NPC not too far down on the left that will want to talk to you. She'll have a mission for you called Ancestral Sin, which basically revolves around a visiting Romulan diplomat and some trouble that's happened because his life has been threatened. In a nutshell, this mission requires the following steps. You speak with the Vulcan, then you speak with the Romulan, then you speak with the Vulcan, then you speak with the Romulan. At some point in there, you'll be asked to debunk the information that's shown up in the death threat letter. In order to do this, you will have to speak with every single one of the scholars located across the surface of Vulcan. Now, many of them are right here by these big steppy thingies and will be really easy to find, but there's more hidden off here up this trail at the top of a mountain, including one that's actually behind the monuments here, kind of just chilling in the middle of nowhere. Watch your mini-map for the little eye dots, and those will point you in the right direction. Once you've spoken with all of these scholars, you can return to the Romulan and confront his aide about possibly being the one that issued the death threat. Well, he denies it, so you have to go talk to the Vulcan's aide about being the one that wrote the death threat. He'll deny it as well, but if you choose the response that includes the saying, do the right thing, he'll come clean and tell you that it was, in fact, the Romulan aide that issued the death threat. Bing bong, Bob's your uncle, off to the next mission. Now, the next one I'll be talking with you about takes place at Starbase 39 here in the Sierra system up in Alpha Centauri. Make your way all the way to the back of the station to speak with Lieutenant Commander Brocal, and she will tell you that she's having some trouble with trade negotiations with a group of delegates that have arrived. A Rigelian, a Ferengi, and a Deferi. After you've gone across the entire station and introduced yourself to each of them, you will have to return to the lieutenant, and then you'll have to get to the bottom of the dispute between the Deferi and the Ferengi. Now, this is pretty much resolved by walking back and forth between the two of them. But at one point, a nearby console will become accessible where you can research the legalities regarding the Ferengi's contracts. That's right, I use the term legality and Ferengi contracts in the same sentence. Try not to faint. When you're here at the console, make sure that you research the Ferengi delegate thoroughly and come across a recording that has something to do with entertainment provisions. Once you've done this, you will be given an optional objective to speak with Admiral Tanay nearby. Do so and ask her about entertainment provisions, then proceed over to the Ferengi contact and talk to him about entertainment provisions. Turns out this is some sort of a secret code word, and the trade negotiations will be free to move forward after you've done this. Congratulations, now you just have to mop up the details by running back and forth across the entire station again. Are you getting tired yet? Okie dokie, the next mission takes place at Deep Space Nine. Actually, more accurately, at Bajor. Now, I'm not going to give you a complete walkthrough of this one because it's actually rather involved and interesting to watch unfold. The only thing that I will tell you is how not to fail it. At one point, you will be given the option of using a pulse laser to investigate a strange device. Don't do it. Using the pulse laser on this device will cause an explosion, and you will fail the mission and be sent to sickbay, and it will be very embarrassing. Instead, when you're given the option to douse the device with water, do so. Now, basically the entire way through this mission is to talk to the Cardassians, check out their stuff in the evidence locker, and then do some research on the internet. Not the real internet, the one here in your ship. All you gotta do is debunk the different types of evidence, and you're done. If you go into this mission assuming the dude is innocent, then you should be able to follow the right dialogue options, no problem. Now, before you leave Deep Space Nine, make a quick detour over to the promenade and pick yourself up a Bajoran Jumja Stick. You'll thank me later. Don't eat it. The next stop on your diplomatic tour of duty is Memory Alpha. Now, this is the big one. There's actually a total of 5 missions that are involved here. The first of which is really, really simple. Go and find and talk to Lieutenant Kirayoshi O'Brien. You remember him. He was the little baby of Chief O'Brien on Deep Space Nine. Well, he misses Deep Space Nine, or more accurately, he misses Jumja Sticks. Remember the one I just had you pick up? Oh yeah. Give it to him. Easiest 10 diplomatic experience you will ever get, so relish it. If for some reason the quest is not updating with the Jumja Stick in your inventory, simply relog and that should trigger the mission to proceed. Now, the real diplomatic meat of Memory Alpha revolves around 3 Ferengi brothers, all trying to look out for their own interests and not those of their brothers. Fortunately, there's not much thinking involved here. I've asked almost everybody I know, and it doesn't seem as though you can fail any of these missions. They're very interesting to read, though. At least I think so. But you know, fans of math, always looking for the quick way out. I know you don't care, so just click, 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 click. That's okay. I'm sure the writers won't have their feelings hurt. There's one other dude here at Memory Alpha that'll send you off to Deep Space K7 with a shipment of medical supplies. Take that after you've finished with the Ferengi and head on out to Eta Eridani. Upon delivering the supplies to this suspect doctor in the bar, he'll ask you to deliver them to his nurse in the nearby lab. A lab attached to the bar? Bonus! After you've delivered the supplies, your bridge officers will hail you, telling you that, surprise, surprise, your crew has been infected. Why did I not see that coming? Well, guess what? You're in a medical lab, and it will become your job to find a cure. Make sure you explore every avenue to yourself, including investigating the previous incident at Memory Alpha, and the report that they will forward to you, and then experiment very carefully on the bacteria itself. Now, while you're doing the experiments, take note of what you're actually clicking on, because here's the doozy. When you go and create the actual antigen later, the buttons will move position, so you actually have to know what you're clicking on, not just where you're clicking. Once you've come up with a compound that will destroy the bacteria, go ahead and get it replicated, pick it up, and shove it in your quartermaster's face. Success! Or failure. If you've failed to come up with the correct antigen, you just get to kill another member of your crew. We lose more quartermasters that way. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the diplomatic missions that you can get without ranking up first. At this point, you should have amassed 70 diplomatic experience, but you'll need another 90 to get to the 160 cap. The best way to get these is through Aid the Planet missions and Scan 5 missions and exploration clusters. But basically, any mission in the entire game that doesn't include you firing a shot or punching somebody in the face should give you diplomatic experience. So good luck hunting out there, and I hope to see you as an ambassador one day, sir. Until then, you got diplomatically mathed.
Of weeks ago, I think it was maybe even 2 weeks ago, we asked you guys to send in your mission ideas, and boy oh boy did you.
Yeah, we got some really great ones.
We got a lot, so
we had to narrow these down just a little bit because
down a little bit.
We're going to be doing a poll that you guys can vote on the winner that we will turn into an actual playable mission.
Yes.
Now, that won't happen until eventually user-generated content lands. What we will be doing in the meantime is kind of trying to do like a demo record-y sort of like walkthrough tutorial.
So go
of the
over
winner.
to the show notes for this episode. That's at Jupiter Broadcasting. Look for episode 45 of STOked. And right in the show notes, you'll be able to vote for the script you like the best. We're going to give you our top 4 that we've picked.
Kind of give you a brief rundown of them.
Whichever one you vote on that wins, once user-generated content engine comes around, because we are firm believers that it will. It's nothing firm, but we think it's going to happen. We're going to work with our fleet, Jupiter Force, to create the mission for you, the Stowe viewers, to actually be able to play.
Before we get into the ones that we've chosen for you guys to vote on, we did want to bring up a few that we did not include, but that we feel are worth mentioning. Yeah, honorable mention
for you guys.
Yeah.
You guys put a lot of work into these. All right, give it to me.
The first one is from Admiral Murphy, and he sent us a mission called the Picard Maneuver. Now, the mission itself actually sounded like it would be a lot of fun, but there's one major problem with it, and that was that it included interacting with the entire crew of the Next Generation. And there, as we know, are some likeness rights issues, many likeness rights issues surrounding every person on that crew. So, fun mission. It actually sounded kind of cool. It involved Q. It was going to be a fun mission, but
too much money.
Too much money.
It would, to get the artwork even alone, just be able to get the rights to use just their likeness.
We got another really good one from a guy named Agent Exciter.
Or Exciter.
Maybe,
I'm not sure.
The title of his mission was Reflections, and this was going to take place in the Mirror Universe.
That close to making it in.
Yeah, he actually fought for this, Agent Exciter, and I vetoed him. I'm the bad guy.
But it looked pretty fun because it involved fighting yourself. That was the essential reason why we ended up vetoing it, because we don't believe there's any actual engine ability in there to take your ship, your stats, and all of your crew and have the engine play them against you.
Right.
But that was essentially the key component to his mission was
you would fight your mirror self.
Yeah. That sounded like a lot of fun.
It did.
We're gonna post the script, so check the show notes so you can read it, because it sounded like a blast. We did
some of these. I'll be honest. Some of them are a little outlandish, but that one was a bit over the edge. We thought.
Yeah.
So,
what about the one that was sort of like spiced up version of a diplomacy mission?
Yeah. Basically, the only reason that we chose not to include this was because it blurred the lines too much between diplomacy and action.
Yeah.
Great story. It really would have made a good television series episode.
I mean, the gist is that you're going along in what you assume is a normal diplomatic mission.
Well, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you get attacked.
Mm-hmm. It was 2 vying factions and a neutral faction, and the neutral faction invited you down to be the ambassador to try to diplomaticize.
Suspicious, yes.
To bring peace to these 2 warring factions. But then you get attacked, and it turns out that it was the neutral faction that attacked you, and they were trying to get Starfleet involved on a military level to so that the neutral faction could then, in essence, take over the warring factions.
I said that neutral. That sounded like a very Romulan maneuver.
It's
very Romulan conniving.
It was a great script, but
we realized a lot of people want to play diplomacies because they don't want to do combat at all. They put it in the game to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
So while I think it'd be a lot of fun, and the J-Man here thinks it'd be a lot of fun, we think there'd be some people that might be upset by that.
Yep.
What were the ones, your top 2 that you picked to bring into the show?
Okay, I'll go first. The number 1 that I thought was really deserved a spot on here is called Smoke and Holograms, and this was sent in to us by, he didn't give us a fake name, so I'm just going to call him DPT, or Daniel. But the idea behind this is that you are sent to investigate a massing fleet somewhere in Starfleet territory. And when you get there, first of all, you're given a cloaking device because this is a reconnaissance mission.
Oh, so even if you don't have
special
like
dispensation,
the Galaxy X or something, you get a cloak.
Right. So you go there under cloak and you investigate, and there's a whole fleet of ships, just massive amounts of ships here.
Oh, geez.
And you have to basically under cloak, fly straight through them and get to the base that's behind them. As you get closer to the base, your science officer says, "Captain, the readings on these ships are odd. I think they're holograms."
Oh.
So just at that point, a large portion of the ship fleet vanishes, and you're engaged by the remainder of the fleet, which is still far too many for you to defeat. So your ship blows up. When you hit respawn, you wake up in a holding cell. Now, this is the one hang up of this mission that I'm not sure that we can recreate, but
because we're not sure you can zone after you die. We think you have to respawn then zone.
Right.
But it would be cool if you woke up in the cell.
Yes, and that's kind of the key, because then you have to fight your way out. Now, the whole reason that I've selected this mission is because on its own, it's a fairly simplistic mission, but it's the great beginning for an epic story arc.
And I gotta agree with you. If we could come up with a mission that the community could take with and build several incarnations of, that'd be a lot of fun.
Now, he didn't flesh this out in his script that he sent us, but my idea was basically that this faction is a holographic, a photonic faction that's maybe broken away from Starfleet. Since
they want their rights.
They want their rights. So viva la revolution! And they're out there fighting the good fight on the behalf of photonics everywhere. That's awesome, I think.
And now you're going to go murder them for wanting that.
Well, it's not really murder. They're just energy, right?
Oh, listen to you, Mr. Racist. All right, so that's not bad. What was your number 2?
Something rotten on Risa.
I love this. I was just thinking to myself, we need a good Risa mission.
Now, this one starts off as a diplomatic mission. At least it appears so. You're sent there under secrecy, some sort of a diplomatic thing. And it's supposed to be shore leave, is what you're supposed to tell everybody
so you're
else.
going there under pretense.
Right. So you get there, and you find out that the guy that you're supposed to meet has been murdered. And you have to question the population, and it turns out that one of the population spotted you talking to this guy several days earlier. Long story short, it turns out that the Undine found out about this, and they were impersonating you. So they killed this dude. And you have to basically take flight and chase the Undine that are impersonating you and take them out.
Well, I'll talk about mine. I called it Invasion of the Ship Snatchers because the gist of this one is essentially what we just alluded to. It's you're lured to a Cardassian ship that's been disabled by some sort of computer virus. And you find out, you get there, that it is a changeling who has taken over the ship. And through a series of circumstances, he becomes in control of your ship. Like, you beam over to the Cardassian ship to see what's going on. He beams to your ship, takes off with your ship, and all you've got left is this really beat up, disabled Cardassian ship.
Right.
You've got to go stop.
Now, the whole
ship.
idea here that E-Buyer mentioned is the changeling was actually, it was a trap laid for you.
Yeah.
Because this is a Vice Admiral mission, and the changelings are after your slipstream drive.
Yeah, I liked that.
Yeah.
And it ties in like something that would be new in the game, so it's a coveted item by another alien race. Love that. We've seen that a lot in Star Trek.
Right.
Plus, the idea would be is maybe the changeling doesn't know how to operate your ship as well as you do and your crew.
Exactly.
So it's not going to be as efficient.
So even in a beat-up Keldon, you can take out your own ship.
Yeah.
At least disable it and beam over and beat them up. One of the cool things about this is there's only one changeling in the entire game right now that you have to actually beat up. And it's kind of a cool fight. He uses some neat mechanics that you don't ever see again.
Yeah.
So it would be really cool to either fight like one or a handful of changelings again. They're neat to beat up.
So that's Invasion of the Ship Snatchers. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and I think you could get away with fighting your own ship without having to recreate a whole engine mechanic to do it.
Right.
The second one I picked partially because it just brought back a lot of good Star Trek memories, just the name of it, and it was What Are Little Ferengis Made Of? And it was also by Daniel, or AKA DPT. I liked this one because it involved, if you remember that the original series Star Trek episode where Nurse Chapel and Captain Kirk
called What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Exactly. They beam down to a planet, and Nurse Chapel's old love is down there, and it turns out to be he's built all these robots, all these androids.
He is an android himself.
He's an android himself.
Yeah.
And so this is an extension of that storyline where the Ferengi trader or something like that ends up on that planet.
Well, on another planet from that same empire. Okay. Yeah.
The idea is you eventually get so many Ferengi that are androids that you would beam down there and you would have just a crap ton of little Ferengis to have to fight.
You just have to fight your way through swarms of Ferengis.
I think that's really cool. Anytime you can bring in an old Star Trek storyline and enrich it some way through the game is an important kind of Star Trek
Absolutely.
because it's important to bring it back to the roots.
This one also involves some neat diplomatic missions because you were actually invited there as well with a Romulan and a Klingon. So there's some interaction with the other races and who wants to vie for the technology and all this stuff. It's just a really great written mission. Right. I totally agree with this one being on the list. If I could pick 3, that would have been my 3rd.
Yeah, exactly. And, we'll see. We'll see what everybody else out there thinks. So, again, every script will be linked over in the show notes for this episode of Stoked. Also, where you will find the embedded poll where you can vote on the episode you like. And then in the next episode, you'll get to see that hopefully as close as possible. I want to keep the expectation low there, but we're going to shoot for it.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully bring that mission to some sort of life.
That'll be fun.
Okay, everyone. Well, this episode is just about all wrapped up. We hope you enjoyed the whole thing, and we do come out every Tuesday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. When we do live stuff, we post that over at facebook.com/jupiterbroadcasting.
Again, you can always join us on the colony. JupiterColony.com is our forum where a lot of this information will be found this time around, but where there's always a community there ready to listen to your Trekkie nerdiness.
That's true. And there is some great conversation that goes in there. Sometimes it's like, what if they did this? And then sometimes it's just that people really discuss some of the aspects of the game. It's great. So check it out. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, that's all we have for this week's episode of Stoked, but we'll see you next Tuesday.